Chapter 2. The northern side of 141st Street was buffered by brownstones standing shoulder to shoulder, as if marching in formation. The buildings were all about the same height, with a ground floor, called the garden level, and 3 more floors rising above. Some brownstones, like the one the Vanderbeekers lived in, also had a basement, which Jessie referred to as the dungeon. Although all the brownstones on the narrow tree-lined street were the same size, each one had its own personality. One brownstone was rotund, like a jolly, well-fed grandfather, with a curved facade and decorative curlicues above round, owlish windows. A few skips down stood a perfectly straight, symmetrical brownstone with a more regal disposition, which stood in direct contrast to its frivolous neighbor, a brownstone with flashy turrets and multicolored shingles that sparkled on sunny days. On the southern side of the street were a mix of larger apartment buildings, and at either end of the block were churches that had recently celebrated their centennials. Next to one of the churches sat a narrow piece of abandoned land, which Miss Josie always talked about making into a community garden, and Oliver wanted converted into a basketball court. 2 blocks to the west was a thin sliver of a park built into a rocky hill. At the top of the hill was a series of castle-like structures that made up the City College of New York's Harlem campus. The sidewalks of 141st Street were wide, but the street was narrow. Majestic street lamps were staggered on both sides of the sidewalks, spaced 50 paces apart. The posts stretched past the first floor of the brownstones and then curved over like a crashing wave. In the evening, the warm glow of the lights made passerby feel that this street might have looked the same 100 years earlier. The Vanderbeekers' home, a humble red brownstone with a weather vane that spun on windy days, sat in the exact middle of the street. The brownstone stood out not because of its architecture, but because of the constant hum of activity that burst out of it. Among the many people who had visited the Vanderbeeker household, there was quite a bit of debate about what it was like, but general agreement about what it was not. It was not calm, tidy, boring, or predictable. At the moment, the things the Vanderbeeker household were not seemed more pronounced than usual. The kids had located their Biederman meeting to Jessie and Issa's bedroom upstairs, where the ancient radiator whistled cheerfully at their arrival. Issa pulled out the easel and stood ready to jot notes, marker in hand. Hyacinth was making Operation Biederman buttons for the kids to wear for their brainstorming sessions. Lainey had discovered a box of flower clips under Issa's bed and was attaching each one to her ponytail. As the kids settled in, Issa looked out at her siblings. As a biracial family, the kids exhibited an eclectic mix of physical characteristics and loved comparing which traits they got from which parent. Issa inherited her mother's stick-straight black hair, which Issa always wore in a sleek ponytail or an elegant French braid, while her twin sister Jessie had Papa's wild, untamable hair, which she never bothered to do anything with. Oliver had Papa's unruly hair but Mama's dark eyes. Hyacinth got Mama's nimble fingers but Papa's large feet. Lainey was an exact blend of both of her parents. Her hair was a shade of dark brown you would get if you swirled her parents' hair colors together on an artist's palette. Her feet not small or large, and her eyes were darker than her papa's, but lighter than her mama's. Issa cleared her throat and tapped her marker on the easel. After the room quieted down and she called their meeting to order, she made the first Operation Biederman suggestions. We could sing Christmas carols to him, she suggested. You know, bring him a little Christmas spirit. What if he's Jewish? Would Christmas carols offend him? Asked Jessie from her spot by the radiator. We could sing Christmas and Hanukkah songs, said Issa. I have a little dreidel, I made it out of clay, sang Lainey, off-key and very loud. Her head looked like a garden, with the flower clips attached all over it. Oliver stuck his fingers in his ears and winced. That is really, really bad. Maybe no dreidel songs, Issa said, as Lainey continued chanting, Dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay. I have a feeling he won't want us singing to him, said Jessie, glancing at Lainey. I don't know. It's just a hunch. Dreidel, 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 Lainey sang. Issa put a hand over Lainey's mouth to muffle her singing. How about doing something to help around the building, like planting flowers or something? Miss Josie can help. She's great with flowers. It's winter. Flowers aren't going to grow now, Jessie said matter-of-factly. How about poinsettias? That's a holiday-ish flower, said Issa. Hyacinth wrapped protective arms around Franz, who was sitting at her feet, and glared at Issa. Poinsettias are poisonous to animals. What about wreaths? Issa said. Too expensive, said Oliver. Jessie huffed in frustration. Okay, I see multiple problems. She ticked them off on her fingers. 1, he doesn't like us. 2, we have no money. 3, none of us has actually seen or met the Biederman, and we know nothing about him. 4, he doesn't want to be disturbed. And 5, he doesn't like us. That's the thing, said Issa. I'm sure there's a way to show him that us living here is better than us not living here. Yeah, but how? Jessie asked. The only person we've ever seen go up there is the bird lady who drops off groceries once a week. The bird lady was aptly nicknamed. She resembled a crane with her long skinny legs and pointy beak nose. Oliver shook his head. She won't be any help. I said hi to her a few times, and she walked past me like I wasn't even there. But I did peek into a grocery bag she left downstairs once. It was filled with frozen dinners. Yuck, said Hyacinth. Jessie moved to her desk and switched on the computer she shared with Issa. I'm going to see if I can find something out about him online. She tapped some keys, paused, and then tapped some more keys. That's weird. I can't get online. Oliver, who was used to the internet, shutting off at inconvenient times, jumped up. I'll reset it. His sisters heard him run down the hall, and then some murmuring, and then his feet stomping back to the twins' bedroom. Internet is shut off, Oliver announced with a scowl on his face. Mama said they had to disconnect it today or pay for the whole next month plus a contract renewal fee. Oh, great, Jessie said. That's just perfect. Issa sensed discontent brewing in the room. Maybe we need some time to get our best ideas together. She capped her marker and shoved the blank easel back to the corner of the room. Issa stood up straight and tried to make her voice sound positive and cheerful. Let's meet again after dinner. Everyone bring at least 2 awesome ideas. I know we can do it. Her siblings exchanged a look as they left the bedroom. When Issa did that falsely cheery voice thing, it meant she was worried. Very worried. The Vanderbeeker kids spent the next few hours agonizing over the Biederman dilemma. How could they convince him to change his mind? After all, it was only 5 days until Christmas. Oliver had dark thoughts about the Biederman as he banged down the stairs, grabbing his puffy jacket and stepping out into the backyard. It was a space eclipsed by a century-old maple tree that dropped a mountain of leaves every year from October to December. Oliver leapt onto the rope swing hanging from one of the many branches. He climbed up the rope so his feet rested on the fat knot at the bottom, and he got the rope swaying. As he gained momentum and height, he closed his eyes and breathed in the crisp, cold air. He could almost smell the salty ocean wind. For that moment, he was hanging from the ropes of a pirate ship, racing across seas to confront and challenge the evil Biederman, a peg-legged man with a long scar on his right cheek who was intent on destruction and mayhem. In the midst of a nasty gale, he heard Jimmy Al yelling at him. Oliver opened his eyes and looked over at the brownstones across the yard, where his friend was waving from his bedroom window on the 2nd floor. Oliver waited for the rope to steady, then ascended the rope Navy SEAL style by locking it between his feet and squatting and stepping all the way up to the top. He had learned this technique from his PE teacher, Mr. Mendoza, the most awesome human being ever to walk on the planet, who used to be a Navy SEAL himself and now challenged each of his students to climb a rope as fast as he could. The top of the rope led to the start of the tree plank Uncle Arthur had made for him last year. Papa was hopeless with larger-scale construction projects and big repairs, so Uncle Arthur usually did those things for him. Oliver hopped onto the sun-warmed plank. He scared off a squirrel that was sitting on the lid of the wood bin that held all of his stuff, and then opened the lid and rummaged through the contents. There was a pack of spare batteries, a flashlight, a handful of granola bars, a first aid kit, his Uncle Arthur insisted, and 2 bottles of orange Fanta that Oliver had hidden from his mother. At last he found what he was looking for, the walkie-talkie he shared with Jimmy L. The walkie-talkies were very useful since neither his nor Jimmy L's parents let them have cell phones. Oliver clicked the walkie-talkie on, and the radio buzzed to life. Oliver heard static, and then Jimmy L's voice came through the device. Captain Kidd, come in. Over. Magic J, this is Captain Kidd, Oliver responded. Magic J, Jimmy L's secret agent name, was ripped from his favorite basketball player, the legendary Magic Johnson. Captain Kidd was taken from the notorious pirate. Oliver heard Jimmy L sigh through the walkie-talkie. Captain Kidd, you need to say go ahead. Oh yeah, sorry, Magic J, go ahead. All quiet over here, over. Potential disastrous situation here at 177 West 141 Street, Oliver said. Immediate attention required. How, copy? Captain Kidd, I copy that. Elaborate, over. The Biederman, our landlord, he's forcing us to move. We have to leave by the end of the month. Over. There was a long pause. Oliver pressed the button to talk again. Magic J, radio check, over. Jimmy L's voice came through the device loud enough to make the squirrel that was attempting a granola bar theft scurry away. Are you serious, Oliver? Oliver grimaced. Jimmy L had broken conversation protocol, which had never happened before in the history of their walkie-talkie relationship. Yeah, my parents just told us, Oliver said into his device. This is the neighbor dude who yelled at your dad when we hit the baseball into his window? That's the one, Oliver replied. That's so wrong, man. He can't take away your home. He's doing it. Papa says we're staying in the neighborhood, though. What about the treehouse? What about our walkie-talkies, man? We stayed up for 2 months for these things. We're trying to convince the Biederman to let us stay, Oliver said lamely. That head-squeezing feeling he felt back when his parents first told him the news had returned. Let me know what happens, man. I can help you. Over. Jimmy L was back to the walkie-talkie protocol, which Oliver took as a good sign. Thanks. We on for basketball on Sunday? Over. Yeah, man. Current ETA for basketball game on Sunday is 1,400 hours. How copy? Magic J, I copy that. Over. And Oliver, yeah, I really don't want you to move. Oliver looked over at Jimmy L's window, but his friend had disappeared from view. The sun dropped behind a building, and a shadow fell across the treehouse. Magic J, I read you loud and clear. Over. And that is the end of chapter 2.